Even the assassin said no. But Vantar Scree wouldn't listen. His final desperate gambit, the Omega X-9 combat android, infiltrated Haven's rest station, hunting Captain Mara Quinn. Instead, it found her waiting with a militia of coordinated humans who had prepared for its arrival. Their synchronized attack overwhelmed its programming, the machine collapsing as Quinn's network closed in on its master. The pale blue light of Nexus Prime Station's artificial moon cast long shadows across the Crimson Moon Cantina. Smoke from a dozen different intoxicants hung in the air, creating a hazy atmosphere that suited the clientele perfectly. This was no place for honest traders or legitimate business. The Crimson Moon was where killers gathered, where bounty hunters found their marks, and where the desperate sought solutions that no civilized world would sanction. In the darkest corner booth, Vantar Scree hunched over his untouched drink. The Xylorian shipping magnate's translucent skin pulsed with angry red veins, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. 3 data slates lay scattered before him, each displaying the same devastating information. Another convoy lost, another shipment of precious Terulian crystals intercepted, another fortune slipping through his fingers. "The Liberty Hawk," he whispered, his voice like gravel being crushed. His long, spindly fingers tightened around the glass until it threatened to shatter. "That human, and her accursed vessel." The name, Captain Mara Quinn, had become a plague upon his existence. 6 months ago, she had been nothing, just another independent trader working the Outer Rim territories. Now she controlled 3 major shipping lanes that had once been exclusively his domain. Her smaller, faster ship could navigate asteroid fields his bulky freighters couldn't. And somehow, she always knew exactly when and where his most valuable cargoes would be passing through. Vantar's third eye, located in the center of his forehead, flared a dangerous crimson as he accessed his financial accounts through his neural implant. The numbers were worse than he'd feared. 3 more losses like this, and his empire would crumble. Decades of meticulous work, countless bribes to officials, and strategic eliminations of competitors, all undone by one human female. The cantina's doors slid open, allowing a brief rush of antiseptic station air to cleanse the room before the automated systems rebalanced the atmosphere. Vantar didn't look up. He was lost in calculations and rage. But he did notice when the ambient noise of the cantina diminished, conversations falling silent as a new presence commanded attention. "I hear you've been inquiring about specialist services," said a voice so quiet Vantar had to strain to hear it. He lifted his gaze to see a hooded figure standing at his table. The being's species was indeterminate, its face obscured by both hood and what appeared to be a phase-shifting mask that never settled on a single appearance. "The Phase Walker," Vantar breathed. He hadn't expected his queries to attract someone of this caliber so quickly. The Phase Walker was legendary, an assassin who could slip between dimensions, appearing inside sealed rooms and vanishing without a trace. "Speak your contract," the figure said, sliding into the seat opposite without invitation. Vantar leaned forward, all 3 of his eyes fixed on the shifting mask. "I want Captain Mara Quinn eliminated. Permanently. The human has cost me millions in lost cargo, and her operations continue to expand. Name your price. I will pay anything." The Phase Walker became utterly still. The constant shifting of its mask froze momentarily on what appeared to be a visage of surprise. "A human." The assassin's voice had lost its professional detachment. "Captain of the Liberty Hawk?" "Yes." Vantar pushed one of the data slates forward, displaying Mara Quinn's image. A woman in her late 30s with close-cropped black hair, olive skin, and sharp green eyes that seemed to challenge the viewer. This human, this thief. The Phase Walker stood so abruptly that the table rocked, spilling Vantar's untouched drink. "Find someone else." "What? I said name your price, whatever it—" "There is no price," the assassin interrupted, already moving toward the exit. No living assassin would take this contract. Why? Vantar half rose from his seat, his voice rising in confusion and anger. She's just one human. The phase walker paused at the door, its mask settling briefly on a grim expression. That's precisely the problem. Good luck, Vantar Scree. You'll need it. The assassin vanished, leaving Vantar standing alone. The eyes of the cantina's other patrons now fixed on him with expressions ranging from curiosity to amusement to pity. The Xylorian sank back into his seat, bewildered. But his determination only hardened. If the phase walker wouldn't take the job, there were others. The galaxy was full of killers for hire. Someone would take his credits. He activated his comm unit and began broadcasting a new message across the underground networks. Infinite credits for the death of Captain Mara Quinn of the Liberty Hawk. The bounty would circulate through every den of inequity and criminal haven in the sector within hours. As the message went out, Vantar failed to notice the human bartender watching him with narrowed eyes, or the subtle movement of her hand as she tapped a small device beneath the counter, sending a different kind of alert through very different channels. The word began to spread among the underworld networks. Who would dare hunt a human? The biosilencer arrived the next day, materializing in Vantar's private quarters aboard his flagship, the Dominion's Fist. The Xylorian had been expecting another refusal, but not from this particular assassin. The biosilencer was infamous for having no moral code whatsoever. The being had killed children, destroyed entire bloodlines, and once eradicated an entire monastic order just to eliminate a single target. Yet, here was the biosilencer, a vaguely humanoid figure whose biochemistry constantly shifted beneath translucent skin, standing at the foot of Vantar's bed at 0300 hours. "How did you get past my security?" Vantar demanded, clutching his silken sheets to his chest. "If I could not, I would be useless as an assassin," the biosilencer replied, voice bubbling with liquid undertones. "I received your bounty offer." Hope flared in Vantar's chest. "And you'll take the contract? Name your—" "No." The biosilencer's form rippled with what might have been discomfort. "I came to warn you. Withdraw the bounty." Vantar's third eye flared with anger. "Why? What is this madness? She's one human traitor." "She is human," the biosilencer said, as if this explained everything. "And humans, they are different." "Different how? They die like any other species." The assassin's form rippled again. "Yes, they die. But what comes after?" The biosilencer moved closer, lowering its voice. 3 years ago, I eliminated a human crime lord on Ganymede Station. Clean job. Untraceable toxin. I was off station before the body was cold. So, within a week, another human had tracked me to my safe house on Europa. Sam Rodriguez, the dead man's brother. No one knew that location. No one. Yet he found me. The biosilencer's normally fluid form seemed to shudder at the memory. I barely escaped with my life. "One vengeful relative doesn't—" "It wasn't just him," the assassin interrupted. "Everywhere I went, humans knew my movements. My accounts were frozen, my identities exposed, my safe houses compromised. For 2 years, I couldn't work. I had to abandon all my established protocols. And I was lucky." "Lucky?" Vantar scoffed. "The Void Wraith took a human contract last year. A scientist who had discovered something inconvenient for his corporate employers. The Wraith was found dismembered in 17 different disposal units across 3 different stations. They never identified who did it." Vantar stared at the assassin, trying to process what he was hearing. "Are you suggesting humans have some kind of collective defense mechanism?" "Not suggesting. Warning." The biosilencer began to fade, its form becoming misty. "Withdraw the bounty, Vantar Scree, or you'll learn what I did. Targeting humans isn't worth any price." With that, The assassin dissolved completely, leaving Vantar alone with his thoughts and a growing sense of unease. But the Xylorian's pride wouldn't allow him to withdraw the bounty. Instead, he increased it, specifying that the successful assassin would receive not only credits, but also exclusive shipping rights through the Cygnus corridor, a route worth billions annually. The next day, the Ghostblade arrived. Unlike the previous visitors, this assassin made no attempt at a dramatic entrance. Vantar simply found the silver-skinned Altharian sitting in his office when he returned from a board meeting, casually examining the ancient Terran katana that the Xylorian kept as a display piece. "Beautiful workmanship," the Ghostblade commented, running a finger along the blade. The humans understood that killing could be an art form. "Are you here for the bounty?" Vantar asked, his patience wearing thin after 2 rejections. The Ghostblade carefully replaced the sword on its stand. "I considered it. The payment is substantial." "Then you'll take the contract?" Hope flared again in Vantar's chest. "No." The Altharian's silver skin caught the light as he turned to face the Xylorian. "But I am curious why you persist. The Phase Walker and the Biosilencer have already refused. Yes?" Vantar's third eye twitched in surprise. "How did you—" "Word travels," the Ghostblade said with a dismissive wave. "Especially when it concerns humans. What is it about this species that terrifies the galaxy's most fearsome killers?" Vantar demanded, slamming his fist on his desk. "They have no special abilities, no natural weapons. Their homeworld is a backwater planet they nearly destroyed themselves." The Ghostblade's expression remained serene. "Have you ever seen a human settlement that was attacked?" "No, but I have." An Urgosi raiding party hit a small human mining colony in the Kuiper Belt. 87 humans against 300 Urgosi warriors. The assassin's eyes took on a distant look. "I was there to eliminate an embezzler hiding among the colonists. Had a perfect position to observe. And the Urgosi didn't just lose. They were annihilated. The humans. They didn't fight like any species I've encountered. No formation, no coordination I could discern. Just chaos. Beautiful, terrifying chaos." The Ghostblade shook his head in what might have been admiration. One human would appear vulnerable, drawing in Urgosi. Then another would strike from an unexpected angle. They used mining equipment as weapons, environmental hazards as traps. They seemed to communicate without communicating. Luck, Vantar dismissed. Or perhaps they had military training. "They were miners and engineers," the Ghostblade corrected. "And it wasn't luck. I've seen similar patterns in other human defensive actions. They adapt with frightening speed, and they never, ever forget an enemy." The assassin stood, adjusting his immaculate garments. "You're human. This Captain Quinn. She was a Marine before she became a traitor. Earth Force Recon." Vantar's blood ran cold. "How do you know this?" "I make it my business to know potential targets." The Ghostblade moved toward the door. "And to know which ones to avoid. Withdraw the bounty. Vantar. The credits aren't worth what will follow." After the Ghostblade departed, Vantar sat alone in his office, staring at the antique sword. 3 of the galaxy's most notorious assassins had now refused his contract. Each had brought warnings, rather than acceptance. Yet his financial situation grew more desperate by the day. Another of his convoys had been intercepted that morning, this time carrying irreplaceable Jovian silks that had been promised to the royal house of Centauri. The penalties for failing to deliver would be ruinous. When the Quantum Stalker and the Apex Warlord also refused his contract in the following days, each bringing their own cautionary tales about targeting humans, Vantar realized he needed to change his approach. If assassins wouldn't take the job, perhaps mercenaries would. The Iron Creed Legion had a reputation for absolute ruthlessness and perfect execution. Unlike assassins, who prided themselves on stealth and precision. The Legion brought overwhelming force to bear. Their commander, a scarred Drarian named Krovax, made no pretense of honor or discretion. He sold violence by the battalion, and his forces had toppled governments on frontier worlds. It took nearly all of Vantar's remaining liquid assets to hire them, double their usual rate, as Krovax also knew of the failed assassination contracts. But the Xylorian was beyond caring about cost. Captain Mara Quinn had to be eliminated before she destroyed everything he had built. The plan was simple. The Legion would ambush the Liberty Hawk when it docked at Ceruleus Repair Station for scheduled maintenance. 200 elite soldiers against one small merchant vessel and its crew of 12. The outcome seemed inevitable. Vantar watched the operation unfold from the safety of his flagship, monitoring the Legion's encrypted communications. The initial assault went exactly as planned. Legion troops secured the station's docking control room, disabled the emergency communications array, and deployed in strategic positions around Docking Bay 7, where the Liberty Hawk was undergoing engine repairs. "Target vessel secured," came Krovax's gravelly voice over the comm. "No signs of awareness. Commencing breach in 3 minutes." Vantar allowed himself a smile of satisfaction. After all the ominous warnings, it appeared that humans were just as vulnerable as any other species when faced with superior numbers and planning. His satisfaction lasted exactly 2 minutes and 47 seconds. The first indication that something had gone wrong was a sudden burst of static over the Legion's command channel, followed by Krovax shouting, "What do you mean the gravity is increasing? Fix it now!" Before anyone could respond, emergency alarms began blaring across all frequencies. The station's environmental systems were reporting catastrophic failures in multiple sections, atmosphere venting in some areas, life-threatening pressure increases in others, and localized gravity fluctuations throughout the docking level. "She's in the environmental control systems," one of the Legion lieutenants shouted. "How did she get—" The transmission cut off abruptly. "Team 3, report," Krovax demanded. "Team 3!" Silence. "All units converge on Bay 7, the commander ordered. "Ignore the environmental warnings. They're fabrications designed to separate our forces." "Sir," another voice broke in, "the warnings are real. Corridor C7 just decompressed. We lost 12 men." "Impossible," Krovax growled. "The station's safety protocols have been overridden," the voice finished. "She's sealed bulkheads across the station. Teams 5 and 7 are trapped in Maintenance Section 9, and the oxygen levels are dropping." Vantar watched in mounting horror as the carefully coordinated attack dissolved into chaos. Status indicators for Legion troops began changing from green to red at an alarming rate. Not just incapacitated, dead. "Fall back to Extraction Point Alpha," Krovax finally ordered, his voice tight with controlled fury. "Bring all wounded. Leave the dead." "Sir, Extraction Point Alpha is gone. The whole docking arm detached from the station 3 minutes ago." There was a moment of stunned silence before Krovax responded. "How many troops remain operational?" 93, sir. Less than half our deployment strength." Another silence. Then, "All remaining units, make your way to emergency evacuation pods. Abandon mission. Repeat. Abandon mission." Vantar couldn't believe what he was hearing. The Ironcreed Legion, the most feared mercenary force in 3 sectors, was retreating from a single human traitor and her small crew. "Commander Krovax," he broke in, unable to contain himself any longer. "What is happening? You have overwhelming superiority in numbers and firepower." "Numbers mean nothing when your enemy controls the battlefield," Krovax replied, his voice cold. "Your human target isn't fighting soldiers. She's using the station itself as a weapon against us. My men are dying in traps we can't even see." "But—" "Contract terminated." The Drarian commander cut him off. "Your payment is forfeit as operational expenses. Consider yourself fortunate that I'm not charging additional fees for the men I've lost in this fiasco." The communication channel went dead. leaving Vantar staring at the monitoring displays in disbelief. On the main screen, the Liberty Hawk still sat in its docking bay, apparently untouched by the chaos that had engulfed the station. It looked peaceful, innocent, a small trader vessel getting routine maintenance. Yet, somehow, its captain had just decimated half of the most elite mercenary force in the sector. As Vantar watched, a new message appeared on his private channel. No video, just text. "The next time you send killers after me, I won't be so merciful. This was your only warning. Captain M. Quinn, Liberty Hawk." Vantar's third eye flared with a rage so intense that blood vessels burst, sending rivulets of green fluid down his face. How dare she threaten him? He was Vantar Scree, master of the 7th largest shipping consortium in the galaxy. He would not be intimidated by a human upstart. But as his fury gradually subsided, cold reality set in. 3 elite assassins had refused his contract, and now a mercenary force had been decisively defeated. His financial reserves were depleted. The penalties for his latest failed deliveries would begin compounding within days. He needed a new strategy, one that didn't rely on traditional killers for hire who seemed inexplicably reluctant to target humans. It was time to explore more unconventional options. Across the stars, silent alerts were spreading. The Human Protection Network was a loosely organized but remarkably effective system. No central command, no formal hierarchy, just humans looking out for their own kind. On New Mars Colony, Governor Eliza Takahashi received a simple text message on her personal device. "Mara under threat, Vantar Scree." In the orbital shipyards of Jupiter, Foreman Jackson Lee found the same message waiting when he checked his communications during a break. At Proxima Station, Customs Director Miguel Sanchez saw the alert flash across his secure terminal while reviewing incoming cargo manifests. None of these humans knew Captain Mara Quinn personally. Some had never even heard of her before receiving the alert. But that didn't matter. The threat against one human was a threat against all. They each knew what to do. No detailed instructions were necessary, no complex coordination required. Each would act within their sphere of influence, applying subtle pressure where it would be most effective. For Governor Takahashi, it meant ordering enhanced inspections of all Vantar Scree shipping vessels entering New Mars space. Inspections that would inexplicably take 3 times longer than normal. For Foreman Lee, it meant discovering critical maintenance issues with the docking berths reserved for Vantar's freighters. Issues that would require at least a week to resolve, forcing the ships to wait in orbit or seek alternative facilities at premium rates. For Director Sanchez, it meant subjecting Vantar's cargo to the most stringent contraband screenings possible, opening every container, scanning every crate, questioning every manifest entry. None of these actions was illegal. None could be traced back to any coordinated effort. Each was merely an unfortunate bureaucratic or technical issue that just happened to affect Vantar Scree's operations. And they were just the beginning. As Vantar frantically tried to manage his crumbling business empire, he found himself beset on all sides by inexplicable difficulties. Fuel suppliers suddenly had delivery problems. Parts for his ships were perpetually on back order. Financial transactions took days longer than usual to clear. Minor regulatory infractions that would normally be overlooked were being flagged for investigation. It was as if the entire galaxy had turned against him, but only him. His competitors faced none of these issues. One by one, his ships were forced to remain idle in orbit or at docking stations, burning through credits for life support and crew salaries while generating no income. Contract penalties mounted as deliveries failed. Clients began canceling future agreements, citing his company's increasing unreliability. The final blow came when the Galactic Commerce Authority announced a routine audit of his entire operation, an audit that would freeze most of his remaining assets until completed. Vantar knew, with cold certainty, that he was being systematically destroyed, not through violence or illegal means, but through 1,000 small actions that together formed an inescapable net drawing ever tighter around him. And somehow, he was certain that the human, Captain Quinn, was behind it all. How else could she coordinate such a widespread campaign against him? It seemed impossible for one person to wield such influence. Unless the assassins had been right. Unless there was something different about humans. Something he had fatally underestimated. With his empire in ruins and his options dwindling, Vantar made one final, desperate move. If human unpredictability was his downfall, perhaps the perfect predictability of artificial intelligence would be his salvation. The Omega X9 was not technically illegal, but it existed in a gray area of Galactic Authority regulations. A self-learning combat android designed specifically for elimination operations. It had been developed by a now-defunct military research division before ethical concerns shut down the program. The few prototypes that had been created were supposedly destroyed. But as with most advanced weapons, some had disappeared into the black market. Acquiring one cost Vanner his last significant assets, his ancestral estate on Xyler Prime, and his collection of ancient Terran artifacts. But if it succeeded, where assassins and mercenaries had failed, the price would be worth it. The android arrived in a nondescript shipping container, officially labeled as agricultural equipment. Vantar activated it in the secure hold of his flagship, now the only vessel he still commanded directly. The Omega X9 unfolded from its compact transportation mode, components shifting and locking into a vaguely humanoid form. Its surface was a dull, non-reflective black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No visible eyes or sensory organs disrupted its smooth faceplate, yet Vantar could feel its awareness scanning him. "Target parameters," it requested, voice devoid of any inflection. Vantar uploaded everything he had on Captain Mara Quinn and the Liberty Hawk, service records, trading routes, known associates, ship specifications, and behavioral patterns observed over the past 6 months. The android processed the information in seconds. Target analysis complete. Calculating optimal elimination strategy. Can you succeed where others have failed? Vantar couldn't help asking. The human has proven difficult to eliminate. The Omega X9's faceplate remained expressionless, but its response held a note that might almost be described as disdain. Previous attempts utilized organic assets with inherent inefficiencies and superstitions. I function on pure logic and predictive algorithms. The target's behavioral patterns indicate a 98.7% probability that she will visit Haven's rest station within the next 14 standard days for resupply. And you can eliminate her there? Affirmative. Haven's rest security systems operate on a standard Helix 7 protocol with predictable vulnerabilities. I can access maintenance shafts undetected and intercept the target in her quarters during rest cycle. Success probability, 94.3%. For the first time in weeks, Vantar felt hope. The android had no fear, no superstitions about humans, no moral qualms. It would execute its programming with perfect efficiency. Proceed, he ordered. Eliminate Captain Mara Quinn. The Omega X9 departed that same day in a small, unmarked shuttle. Vantar tracked its progress to Haven's rest station, where it entered undetected, exactly as planned. Everything was proceeding according to the android's predictions. What neither Vantar nor the Omega X9 had predicted, however, was that Haven's Rest's station manager, Lena Hart, had received the same alert as every other human in position of authority. Mara under threat, Vantar Scree. When the Liberty Hawk requested docking permission 3 days later, Hart was ready. She had quietly assembled a volunteer defense force from the station's human population, maintenance workers, shop owners, retired military personnel living on the station. Each was briefed on the potential threat and given specific responsibilities. The Omega X9, monitoring communications from its hiding place in the station's maintenance tunnels, detected no unusual activity. To its sensors, everything appeared normal. The Liberty Hawk docked. Captain Quinn and her crew disembarked for standard shore leave and resupply operations. Security patrols moved in regular patterns. The android calculated the optimal moment to strike, 200 hours, when the station's night cycle was at its deepest, and Captain Quinn would most likely be alone in her quarters. It began moving through the maintenance shafts toward the visitor housing section, its body shifting to blend with shadows. At precisely 0157 hours, all power on Haven's rest station failed. Emergency lighting activated seconds later, bathing the corridors in dim red. The Omega X9 paused, recalculating. This was an unexpected variable. The power failure wasn't in its prediction models. Nevertheless, it adapted quickly. The emergency lighting actually provided better shadow coverage for its approach, and with security systems temporarily disabled during the reset, its path to the target was even clearer. The android resumed its advance, moving swiftly through now empty corridors. It reached the visitor housing section and located Captain Quinn's assigned quarters. The door, disabled by the power failure, yielded easily to its enhanced strength. The Omega X9 entered silently, sensors scanning the darkened room. The bed was empty. The quarters showed signs of recent occupation. Personal items arranged on surfaces. A jacket draped over a chair. But the target was not present. Before the android could process this discrepancy, the station's public address system crackled to life. "Attention, unknown intruder," came a calm, female voice. "You are surrounded. This station is now under lockdown. Surrender or be destroyed." The Omega X9 calculated its options. Bluff probability, 76.4%. Withdrawal recommended. It turned to exit the quarters. The corridor outside was no longer empty. A dozen humans had taken positions at both ends, using makeshift barricades constructed from maintenance equipment and furniture. They were armed with a variety of weapons. Some standard security issue. Others, clearly improvised from tools and station equipment. At their center stood Captain Mara Quinn herself, holding what appeared to be a modified mining laser. "You're looking for me," she stated, her voice steady. "Here I am." The android's combat protocols activated instantly. It launched forward, moving faster than human reflexes could track, targeting the nearest defender with lethal precision. But the humans didn't react as expected. Instead of panicking or firing wildly, they executed a coordinated defense that seemed to anticipate the android's movements. As it lunged toward one human, another activated a magnetic pulse emitter that momentarily disrupted its motor functions. When it changed targets, the humans shifted formation, always keeping Captain Quinn protected at their center. The Omega X9 had never encountered such coordination. Its predictive algorithms struggled to model the humans' seemingly chaotic, yet effective tactics. They weren't fighting as individuals, but as a single organism with multiple components, adapting to each of its moves with uncanny precision. For 3 minutes and 22 seconds, the battle raged through the corridor. The android managed to incapacitate 4 defenders, but sustained damage to its left limb actuator and primary sensor array. Its success probability calculations dropped steadily, 87.3%, 64.9%, 41.2%. Then, Captain Quinn spoke a single word into her communicator. "Now." From all directions, the remaining humans fired simultaneously, their weapons converging on the android's central processing core. The combined energy burst overloaded its shielding and penetrated critical systems. The Omega X9 experienced what, in an organic being, might be called surprise as its functions began to fail. Its last calculation showed a success probability of 0.0%. As the android collapsed, its systems shutting down one by one. Captain Quinn approached cautiously. She looked down at the now inert machine, her expression grim. Trace the control signals, she ordered one of her companions, a thin man with cybernetic enhancements visible around his eyes. I want to know who sent it. Already working on it, Captain, the man replied, fingers dancing over a portable terminal. Encryption is heavy, but the transmission origin is clear. It came from the Dominion's Fist, Vantar Skree's flagship. Quinn nodded, as if this merely confirmed what she already knew. Send word to the network. It's time to end this. The human network had been applying pressure to Vantar's operations for weeks, but now they moved with coordinated purpose. Evidence of his illegal assassination attempts, gathered piecemeal from station logs, financial transactions, and communication intercepts, was compiled and submitted to the Galactic Authority's Enforcement Division. The Omega X9's remains provided the final, irrefutable proof. The android's memory cores, though damaged, contained enough recoverable data to establish Vantar's direct involvement in acquiring and deploying an illegal weapons system. 3 days after the confrontation at Haven's Rest Station, a Galactic Authority cruiser intercepted the Dominion's Fist as it attempted to flee to non-aligned space. Enforcement officers boarded the vessel and arrested Vantar Skree on multiple charges: conspiracy to commit murder, illegal use of prohibited AI weapons, violations of commerce regulations, and attempted sabotage of critical infrastructure. The Xylorian's remaining assets were frozen pending investigation. His shipping consortium, already crippled by weeks of operational difficulties, collapsed entirely as investors and partners disassociated themselves from the scandal. Captain Mara Quinn watched the news reports from the bridge of the Liberty Hawk as her ship departed Haven's Rest, resuming its regular trading route. The Human Defense Network had already begun standing down its operations. The alert stopped. The technical difficulties affecting Vantar's operations mysteriously resolved themselves. Station managers and colonial governors returned to their normal routines. To an outside observer, it would appear that nothing unusual had happened, just an isolated criminal being brought to justice for his actions. But throughout the galaxy, a new story began circulating in cantinas, spaceports, and trading hubs. The tale of a shipping magnate who had tried to eliminate a human captain and found himself facing an invisible army in response. With each retelling, the story grew more elaborate. Some versions claimed that thousands of humans had mobilized in Captain Quinn's defense. Others suggested that Earth itself had dispatched secret agents to protect one of their own. The most fantastic versions hinted at some kind of telepathic bond that allowed all humans to instantly know when one was threatened. None of these exaggerations captured the simple truth. Humans protected their own, not through some mystical connection, but through communication, cooperation, and a shared understanding that an attack on one was an attack on all. As for Captain Mara Quinn, she continued her trading operations as if nothing had happened. The Liberty Hawk maintained its reputation for finding the most profitable routes and delivering cargo with uncanny timing. If some competitors regarded its captain with new wariness, she took no notice of it. The only change was a small addition to the ship's cargo manifest, a non-functional Omega X9 android, carefully disassembled and stored in a secure container. Quinn had purchased the remains from the Galactic Authority after their investigation concluded. Insurance, she explained to her curious crew, a reminder of why we never travel alone. Throughout the galaxy, other potential adversaries took note of Vantar Skree's fate. Shipping competitors who might have considered similar tactics reconsidered. Criminal organizations revised their policies regarding human targets. Even legitimate businesses developed a new appreciation for the potential complications of crossing human traders. And in the shadows where assassins gathered, a new unwritten rule became firmly established. Even the assassins said no. Targeting humans was a death sentence. Not because humans couldn't be killed, they were as mortal as any species, but because the consequences that followed made survival unlikely for whoever had ordered the killing. 6 months after Vantar's arrest, the Liberty Hawk docked at Nexus Prime Station for the first time since the incident began. Captain Quinn made her way to the Crimson Moon Cantina, where she took a seat at the bar. The human bartender, the same one who had sent the first alert when Vantar broadcast his bounty, set a drink before her without being asked. "On the house, Captain," she said with a small nod. "Good to see you well." Quinn raised the glass in acknowledgement. "Thanks to friends I've never met." The bartender smiled. "That's how it works. Today you, tomorrow me." As Quinn enjoyed her drink, she couldn't help noticing how conversations quieted when station residents realized who she was. Some nodded respectfully in her direction. Others seemed to find urgent business elsewhere. But all gave her space, treating her with a deference that bordered on wariness. Word had spread, as it always did. The story of Vantar Scree and Captain Mara Quinn had become a cautionary tale, a reminder that in the vast expanse of the galaxy, where countless species competed and cooperated in an intricate dance of commerce and politics, humans occupied a unique position. Not because they were strongest or smartest or most technologically advanced, but because they stood together, because they remembered their enemies, because they understood, on some fundamental level, that their greatest strength lay not in individual prowess, but in collective action. As Quinn finished her drink and rose to leave, a young Xylorian approached her table. The three-eyed alien's skin showed none of the angry red veins that had characterized Vantar, just the natural translucent blue of his species. "Captain Quinn," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "I am Keltor Scree, Vantar's son." Quinn's hand dropped to the stunner at her hip, but the Xylorian raised his hands to show they were empty. "I've not come seeking vengeance," he assured her. "Quite the opposite. I've taken control of what remains of my father's business interests, and I wish to propose a partnership." "A partnership?" Quinn didn't bother hiding her skepticism. "Yes. Your roots, my remaining ships, together. We could rebuild and expand. No more competition. No more misunderstandings." The human captain studied the young Xylorian carefully. "Your father tried to have me killed, multiple times." "My father never understood humans," Keltor said simply. "I've studied your species since I was a child. I know better than to make his mistakes." Quinn was silent for a long moment, considering the offer. Finally, she nodded once. "Send a proposal to my ship. I'll review it with my crew." "Thank you, Captain." Relief was evident in all three of the Xylorians' eyes. "You won't regret this opportunity." As Keltor departed, Quinn turned to find the bartender watching her with a raised eyebrow. "Keeping your enemies closer?" the woman asked. "Something like that," Quinn replied. "Or maybe just giving peace a chance." She left a generous tip and made her way back to the Liberty Hawk, where her crew awaited her next decision. Whatever path she chose, she knew she wouldn't walk it alone. No human ever did. Not really. Not in a galaxy where the word had spread. Even the assassins said no. Targeting humans was a death sentence.